Good morning, everyone. This is Tanya DiCostanzo. We're with the GAI Insights team. Paul, not sure if you can, if you're in a place to speak at the airport, so I'll take in with the intro. We meet every morning to review some interesting GAI articles that are in the news, and we classify them to help our executives know what's important to read today. We use E for essential, I important, and O for optional. So with that, we'll get started with our review. And Ankaj, if you can please start with the first article.
Sure, Tanya. So the first one that we have today is from International Monetary Fund. So they have published a report on generative AI and the future of work.
Good. Thank you. So John, would you like to take a stab at ranking this one?
Yes, yeah, I do confess I was geeking out on this. This is great. I love data. I love real, science here. Boy, I think this is essential. Let me tell you why. So this is a really well done study that looks at the global impact of generative AI on work. And let me just share some of the findings. First of all, it ranks the overall findings are that generative AI is going to differentially affect more educated people in advanced economies, more women than men, and more at the higher income levels. And it's substantial. They use very clinical economic language, but if you look at the numbers, they're pretty striking. And I think it's a read, it's a slog. But one of the things I found out in our billionaire study is that billionaires all read tremendously. So if you want to get, advance your career, don't say, "Hey, I've got time to read stuff." Um, so anyway, the U.S. is the second most exposed economy after the UK. $50,000 a year people are 20% exposed to redundancy or redeployment. 100K people are over 60% exposed. So higher income. College educated starts at 40% exposed and goes up to 60%. And then they're based on age. So starting at the age 40, sorry, I did that wrong. At the age of 40, the younger college educated people are about 20-30% exposed. The 40 and above, they estimate to be 60% exposed. And then the redeployment rate, that is their likelihood of being able to get another job or a like job, is at 50%. So this is spectacularly impactful for the professional class throughout the developed countries. So I think it's essential.
I did not get to read this whole thing, so it's hard for me to argue. However, from what you're saying, it sounds a lot like other studies that have come out, like the one from the International Labor Organization, like early last fall, seem to have like similar findings. I'll also point out, what I did notice in this one was that women would be differentially affected, which was also pointed out in that study I just mentioned, and I think that's important to note. It sounds very similar to me, which makes me feel like I'd move it down to important, but again, I didn't read the whole thing, so I can only have so much weight with my opinion, I think.
Well, there is a nice chart towards the end. Again, I skimmed through it, but there is a nice chart towards the end where it talks about different professions, and it kind of puts into perspective why women are mostly impacted, and it's because women tend to go more towards services type of profession. And in the chart, I just really liked how they talk about that complementary and the exposure. The chart there, and they had economists and telemarketers as the examples of those that will be severely impacted by AI. So I thought for those who have time to read, it's definitely a good read.
So what you get to decide, Tanya, since you hold the gavel today.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do it essential because I don't think we did any essentials last week. So let's start with essential.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Essential reading.
Okay, the next one is from Stanford University. So, according to their research, large language models are still making mistakes when being used for legal purposes.
I personally, I don't know. Here's why I found this to be optional, because they only seem to look at general purpose models like GPT-4 that they didn't look at, I'm sorry, GPT 3.5 as you're showing, they didn't look like at any fine-tuned ones that might be being used in Harvey and other products meant specifically for the legal profession. So, and we already know these things hallucinate, so I found it optional.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's kind of fun that the legal reasoning is different than probabilistic reasoning, which I can see, but I agree, optional.
But I guess we know now that the corpus of data that this was trained on probably didn't contain a lot of case law, but that's not really that surprising either.
Good. All right. So I think we agree on this one. And as you said, we've already discussed these topics in the past, right? So it's well known. All right. So optional it is. Next one, please.
Okay, the next one is from Microsoft. So they recently launched Copilot, which was using GPT-4, and then there was a leak that it might be using GPT-4 Turbo as well. So while it was free earlier, now Microsoft has launched a pro plan for it and has put limits on the free model or the free Copilot.
Yeah.
When I read this, to me, this was important or even essential for our audience, right? Because a lot of our people are using Microsoft. The pricing seems to be very similar now, right? $20 to what the other providers are doing. So I thought this was really relevant to our audience.
Yeah, when I first saw the headline, I was tempted to say optional because I'm thinking, okay, they're clarifying their product announcement, and we already knew this was coming. But then as I read down, I moved myself to important, and the main reason is harkens back to our article yesterday, where we read that corporations have not completed much training of their employees, and this is another reason that you should be doing this, because now well, if you pay the extra money, they're going to have access to these tools and they should know how to use them properly. So that was the main reason that I bumped myself up to important here.
Yes. Yeah. I'm actually on essential because normally I don't, wouldn't rate product announcements, but this is the leading vendor. It's a short article. It's very clear. Everybody wants to know what this stuff is. Let's say essential. Hey, another thing Chris Brock just noted on the commentary, he agreed with you, David, that on the legal stuff, if the models are trained properly with jurisdictional law restrictions and so forth, you'll get much better answers. So
right,
I agree.
Right.
But,
and apologies
back to this
to
thing.
Apologies to those watching today that we can't comment. Adam is usually our commenter in there, and I don't have the screen open to comment, so we'll try to interact with you a little bit through voice.
Sure.
Okay, so on the Microsoft, we have two important, one essential. David, unless you want to change to essential, we're going with important.
Is that your vote counts more? So whatever.
Okay, we're going to do important. All right, let's go to the next.
Important it is. All right, next.
Okay, the next one is from Refik Anadol. So they have launched something interesting, which they are calling a large language model based on nature.
I wish they had a little more information in this article, because that maybe would have affected my rating. They didn't really tell us a lot. I mean, one thing that jumped out to me was that they were going to have custom design sense. But does that mean it's not generating sense live? So this article just confused me. I mean, it seems interesting, but I felt like I didn't get enough information, so I go optional personally.
Yep, I give it an eye for inspiration, but not really for.
I could change my mind later if we hear some feedback from Davos and people interacting with it that it's doing something that we just don't know from this article.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lousy article, but my assumption was that they're generating new images based on taking much more information from natural pictures, and but yeah, optional. I'm dying to see the product though in person. It'd be great. It sounds like the display was amazing. Yeah.
All right, optional it is. Thank you. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, the next one is around how GenAI or AI is leading to layoffs at various organizations.
and we're reading all these announcements about the layoffs from tech companies, and only one really seemed like it was the Google layoffs about for the ad team. Seemed like it was truly confirmed that was connected to AI. The other ones, I keep questioning whether it's the media saying this and people assuming, or if it's real. I mean, we know it's going to happen, but I wasn't quite sure that I agreed that these particular layoffs were from AI. So I don't know. I went optional on this one, but what did you guys think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Sloppy journalism, whatever, holding two things next to each other doesn't make them causal. But yeah, I'd say optional. No new news here.
Yeah, I had it as optional as well. And I think, it's just this idea of, as they look at AI, they're thinking productivity and, okay, what does that mean? And it doesn't always line up to what they're, reducing headcount is not always the answer. Okay, so we'll do optional for that one. The next one, please.
Okay, and the next one is from Cerebras. So they have collaborated with Mayo Clinic to advance generative AI in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think, Tanya? You're very interested in this area.
Yeah, and because of one of the customers we have that asked us to start looking at different, to give more targeted review on this space. I found this, definitely, I marked it important for pharma. I think that the idea of using analytics for diagnosis. Oh, it's not me.
Nope. Musical interlude.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I think that the idea of using AI for improving diagnosis, patient care, it's something that we're hearing, right? It's happening with other companies, but Mayo Clinic, right? It's a whole different level. So definitely an important read for the pharma industry.
But you would say optional for everyone else, right? We've seen these diagnostic tools.
Yep.
We just talked about one this week, so we know it's coming. It's great, though.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go with we'll go with important for pharma, optional for others, and then I think we have one more article.
Yes, Tanya. So the next one is a new model which has been launched by Tencent. So they are calling it Photomaker, and it can create really realistic human photos.
I mean, this is one that I wish we had Adam around to let us know if there's anything really groundbreaking about the technical underpinnings of this model, but otherwise it seemed like functionality we've seen before. There must be something different in the way that, well, I know it said there was something different in the way that they're creating the underlying model, but it's not a new functionality, so it felt optional to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bunch of other providers that also are using it, but
yeah,
optional.
Good. I think out of all of the articles that we had today, this one was the most interesting, just as hey, look everything that can be done and the different characters you can put a face to. And the one that really struck me was the age. You can take a picture and make that person, look younger, look as a kid. And I was just thinking, for anyone who is in like medi spa, facial care, they can do a lot with that. Hey, this is what you look like today, and then after our services, you'll look this way. So interesting.
Yep.
Again, I don't know the technology like you said, David, but it's definitely an interesting advancement.
Yeah, and as Michael's pointing out, the legal issues in this space are still up in the air.
Yeah. All right, so we'll mark that one optional. And I think, am I correct, Ankaj? That completes, or do we have something else?
Yes, Tanya, that's the last one.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Go ahead, David.
Oh, I was going to say, we had an optional article about OpenAI's response to the election, which was kind of non-news in that they kept saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they hadn't actually done anything yet. But the interesting thing in there was actually not related to the elections, but they stated that they will soon be having real-time news in ChatGPT, and that it will be sourced. So
Yes.
obviously this is in response to the lawsuit that is raised by the New York Times. So I thought that piece in there was interesting, just FYI for folks if you didn't catch that.
Yeah, and I thought the provenance, the cooperative that they're putting together for provenance of data and sources is pretty interesting.
Good.
That's going to be,
all right.
that's going to be really important. Yeah.
All right. Well, that completes our review for the day. So thank you for participating, and we will see you again tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.